Well, it's great to have our audience back for a look at, as we take this deep dive during the Centre Court Masters Festival, at the tremendous range of specialized masters that are available. We've talked a lot about information systems and, of course, business analytics, two master's programs that have really emerged in recent years. And irrespective of economic conditions, demand for graduates coming out of those programs. So it's a pleasure to welcome Alex Bruce. Alex is the Director of Information Systems Graduate Programs at the Kelley School at Indiana. Also with us, John Gibson, the Associate Director of Graduate Admissions for both Business Analytics and Information Management programs at the Krannert School at Purdue. On the West Coast, we have Maria Stutzman-Marquez, who is the Director of Graduate Recruiting Admissions at the Anderson School, UCLA, and their Business Analytics program. Also with Business Analytics and Finance at Mendoza at Notre Dame, Paul Brandano is joining us. He's the Executive Director. And Alison Jacobs, the Assistant Director of the MSBA admissions at the Goizueta School at Emory for Business Analytics. Alison, I'll start with you because your job title actually solves one of the questions that I had of, if we already have the MBA well established in the market, what were we going to call the Masters in Business Analytics? And I guess you've squeezed the little S in there. I talked about, the strong demand that all of these top schools are seeing for business analytics. Tell me a little bit about the program and what you think is driving that demand.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. As Matt said, I'm Alison Jacobs from the Goizueta Business School at Emory University and work specifically with our MSBA students and program. Our MSBA program is a 10-month STEM designated program that was designed to create what we call a business data scientist. So we were looking to develop a program that brought together the business people, the data people, and also the technology people, so that we would create, I guess you could say, a translator of a person who understands the data but can actually help the business turn it into insights. And so we've been very excited about this program. It has grown, and I think the demand for people with these skills has only grown in the marketplace.
Right. Alison talks, Paul, about joining those dots, because we're swimming in data in every sector, in every industry, and as consumers, of course, but it's being able to actually get that deeper sense and what that actually, how we might interpret that. So tell me a little bit about the Anderson approach to this.
Absolutely, Matt. Thank you very much. It's great to be here with Poets and Quants. And I think my message to you is in the name, actually, in Poets and Quants, and that when we are out there looking for a candidate, we're looking for actually a poet and a quant in the same person. And so with that, we, like Emory and my peers across the panel, are looking to bring a person into the world who can be that bridge between the IT side of the house and the true line of business executive, and be that single point of truth, to both sides of the house, if you will.
And presumably to put the words behind the numbers in building that bridge.
Exactly, that's right, and be able to say it well and in a way that is both charismatic and interesting in a world that is normally thought of as perhaps not. So it's there's no better time to be getting into this field and becoming a storyteller in this field.
Well, so we'll shake off the idea that this is sort of geeks only territory. I mean, John, information management, business analytics, these programs, it feels that they were just waiting to happen, and now is a great time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Paul hit it on the head that we're looking for quants and poets. And so, a school like Purdue, which is, well known for its STEM background and what we do here, for us, it's kind of like a perfect marriage, because from the Krannert School, we're taking a lot of those technicians and helping them tell those stories. And I think everybody on the panel would agree that it's such a critical time for being able to tell the story behind, as Matt said, the volumes and volumes of data that we are producing every day. And just from this webcast alone, the volume of data that is being produced, and then to be analyzed, and what does it mean is huge. And so at Purdue, what we were, in the around 2014 or so, they were starting to talk about, how do we see what's happening, we see this demand. We've got the STEM background, we have the analytical approach that we've always had. And so how do we put all this together? In 2016, they launched the BAME program, and it's been sky's the limit. To echo what everybody's said, there is not a better time to go into this field than right now.
Right.
So.
Maria, at Mendoza, of course, identifying next career steps, you might have had a wide mix of interests and subjects that you followed at undergrad, but it strikes me, this is a very distinct, determined career move, saying, I think, given that market demand, is that something that you see with applicants to the program at Mendoza?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for bringing us to that point, because there are so many, I think you mentioned earlier, across all industries and sectors, we're seeing the need for analytics and analysts. And it's different from what it was like, let's say in the 1990s, where people were hiring for business analysts, right? It was a different type of a view, a different type of perspective. And to what Allison said earlier, this is really the marriage of the data science, the computer science with statistics, and then also this like business acumen, right? And I think those are additional layers to the knowledge and skills that the marketplace is looking for at this point in time. And so we see, and I think what John was saying about, the data that we're consuming right now, whether it's from a marketing or a digital marketing lens, whether it's in consultancy roles, we are looking for numbers to really dictate a knowledge or an insight or a truth that then can help us to pivot as leaders in specific industries or in different companies, right? And so I look to even better think about, what's happening in corporate social responsibility or in issues of climate change and sustainability. Like, we don't necessarily have all the metrics and the KPIs, even around diversity, equity, and inclusion for large organizations. So how are we going to data mine, and how are we going to create ethical leadership around some of the truths that we do find, right? And then how does that determine? So I think, more specifically, I think every industry is going to need to have people who can do this work and think about the ethical dilemmas once you do have the knowledge and the truth set forth by some of the information that's mined.
Right. Alex, if we go back 18 months and through that first wave of the pandemic, and there was so much uncertainty that how this would impact different industries, but I mean, it strikes me, information systems that really is the bedrock of so many organizations. Is that something that you've sort of seen at Kelley in terms of demand for the program, even demand for recruiters, that almost irrespective of financial conditions around us, this is an essential skill set that you're bringing to corporations?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks so much, man. I'm really excited to be here, but you're exactly right. We've had this conversation a lot. Obviously, students come in and they're worried about doing well academically, but they're worried about their financial opportunities and what's going to be facing them when they graduate, right? And I've been able to say with a lot of confidence, you are in this program at the best time possibly ever, right? We've been going for 20 years with the MSIS program here at Kelley, and talking to the faculty who've been around for much of that time. There's very few other times in history of this program they can point to being a better time for the students walking out. And I tell the story earlier this year to our students of, we're very proud. Last August when I was sitting with students, the world was in a much different place, much more uncertainty. But we were very proud when we got around to May that we still had over 95% of our graduates walking away with a job.
Wow.
So just identifying how great a demand these students are and the skills they're acquiring over the time in the program, it is there. So absolutely, yeah.
Right. Alison, you described, the intensity of a 10-month program, and perhaps, with Alex, Paul, John, and Maria, similar sort of stories, because, this idea, well, I could take evening courses, I could somehow, brush up, or even, internal company support that I could get. But, our audience are looking at this real transformation and a distinct break. So intensive, 1 year, what is it that that you're then able to achieve with them, the journey that they're taking in that year?
Yeah, that's a great question. It is a very intensive 10 months, I know, for all of our programs. And it was really designed that way so that students can receive the skills and then immediately go out and apply them. And I know one of the things we do at Goizueta, as well as some of the other programs, is we have a built-in capstone experience in the spring semester where students will actually get to work for a company using their data to solve the problem. And the students get to use all the tools that they've learned in the fall semester to go about and solve that problem. So these 10 months was really designed so that the students can very quickly learn the skills, apply them, and immediately go out into the marketplace and add value in their role. And one of the things we continually heard from our students, that the capstone experience not only gives them the skills to go out and do well in their first job, but also the confidence, because they can actually sit at a meeting and say that they have actually done what the company is asking them to do. So I think that's a really big component of these MSBA programs. Yes, they're short, yes, they're intense, but they are also an application of the skills that we are teaching.
Right, and you know, Maria was talking about sort of diversity and inclusion. So, you know, the sort of pervasive nature of data. You know, Netflix can work out how popular a South Korean series is, Paul, just by looking at those viewing numbers and what it tells them. How do you then work with your students to give a sense of industries? Because finance, healthcare, supply chain, there's no limit from what you're all describing. Capstone projects, what are the ways that they can get a sense of, you know, the industries that would be passion, sort of a real passion for them?
Well, yeah, absolutely. So I think, oh, sorry, did you ask Paul?
Yes, I was talking to your comment, Maria, about diversity, but just saying to Paul how UCLA helps to then sort of match students and their interests with particular industries.
Right. So thank you. I appreciate the question. You know, it's really truly an applied science. You know, as Allison mentions, you know, we have to think about a 15-month window as getting a student ready to work really across industry, and then probably deep dive into one that they're choosing. And so as a result of that need, we embed, actually in several ways, a real industry component. First, when we're not teaching with our extraordinary ladder faculty, our PhD faculty, we're bringing in faculty from the outside who are doing the kinds of industry work specific to business analytics in their field, or we're bringing in somebody extremely technical, either on the data management side or machine learning, for example, or programming languages. So we're bringing the real world and the real world problem to the classroom, but also we've included a course that we call the industry seminar that runs 20 weeks. And we bring in each of those 20 weeks a different executive from the outside, aim as high as possible. And we're very thankful to the industry at large for being responsive to us and coming to us with a lot of honesty in the classroom, and challenging our students each week with a real set of data that they can then present back to the client in the short 3-hour window. What we find is that a lot of times those clients are walking out of the room, you know, asking us about specific students who spoke up. So it's a really nice kind of crucible of ideas and opportunities that come together, and then followed by a summer internship, and then an opportunity to either continue that internship as a capstone or to take on a traditional capstone with an outside company on a team. So there's always an industry component. And I think of it, the analogy I like to use is when you graduate, you're kind of like this old timey doctor who has this bag. And most of the time you're going to service the flu, but some of the time you might have to take out a bullet, right? So nonetheless, you know, hopefully by the time we're done with them in 15 months, they've got all of those tools necessary to do either job.
It's a wonderful virtuous circle that you create, you know, that direct connection with those sort of senior executives. And John, you know, I was told that there will always be demand for long distance truck drivers, but in terms of when someone might then take this step and say, you know, I've heard this early stage career, but really feel that analytics is where it's at. Is that something that you then see at Krannert in terms of people, you know, coming back to school and thinking, this is the right next step for me?
Yeah, you know, that's a great question. And I think we probably on the panel, it's a little bit of both, actually. I think we have people who are in their 30s. They're kind of moving into that next level of their career. And they're like, I have got to get these technical skills in line so that I can lead my team of engineers, or I can lead my team of marketers to go and do their work. But we've also got a fair number of computer science majors. And here recently, we've had a great influx of folks from like non-traditional type of business analytics areas, such as liberal arts. They have liberal arts majors, liberal arts degrees, and they're crushing it. It's been great to see it. So we're getting a nice mix. We get folks who are a little more seasoned, and then we've got our 22, 23, 24-year-olds who are looking to give themselves a little bit of an edge, right? And to upskill in some areas that maybe they didn't get in their undergraduate degree, or they want to enhance. Computer science is one that jumps to mind as well, that they come from computer science and they've got those technical skills, but now they want to get the business school management side, kind of the I hate to say real world because we say that a lot in business schools, but that kind of real world applied. Here's kind of a gnarly business problem that comes into one of our centers, Krannert Center for Business Analytics and Machine Learning. How do we solve this problem? And so I think we get a little bit of both. We get the kind of traditional specialized master student, and then we get the non-traditional. And the fact that it's business analytics is by far one of the hottest areas, both for our industry, but also in the hiring sector. I mean, everybody is looking for people with these skills, and so the marketplace is responding.
Right. So from the poets to the quants, from the early 20s to their mid 30s. I mean, Maria, with that sort of diversity then in the classroom, what sort of energy does that generate? And this sense of your cohort, your community, and whether these thorny business problems. I mean, Maria, do you sort of see them off in study groups and trying to come up with these answers?
Yeah, absolutely. And just I want to clarify too that we have a couple of different programs that are aligned to the business analytics. So we have a program that's non-residential that's based in Chicago, where people travel in every other weekend, and they take their courses in our Chicago campus. And those are primarily students who have had like 3 to 7+ years of experience, who are looking back at their career or looking at what they're currently doing and really wanting to dive in deeper to all of the programming and the curriculum that's provided. A lot of people coming from finance backgrounds, interested in the fintech space, wanting to better understand how algorithms work. And so we see that often, but I think that dynamic in that center is even more diverse because of the range of experiences and the diversity in industry where people are coming into. We also have people flying in every other week. So, I mean, there's some regional diversity there. I think for the classroom, the residential specialized masters, that is an 80-person classroom. And we also have people from our dual degree program with the MBA who are also taking courses with what would be like somebody who may have just come out of undergraduate, the 1 or 2 year. So I think there's like a level of mentorship happening, but everybody is somewhat on the same playing field. And I think that makes for a really unique community mindset and really helping each other to advance a bit. But I've also really enjoyed hearing stories about students who, I think John mentioned, like coming from the humanities or coming from like incredibly different backgrounds and stepping into this and being somewhat overwhelmed at first, but then also kind of working with their peers and with professors to really understand the nuances involved with business analytics and some of the storytelling and the information that comes along with it. So yeah, the dynamic is alive and and working on some of those complex issues.
Right. Alex, you sort of said, the right program at the right time. So if I sat down with, Kelley students that are doing the information systems master's program, what would you think they would share, not just in terms of what they're learning, but what they're going through as a more personal learning experience, this going back to school, the investment that they're making and how that's building their confidence for the next steps of their career?
Yeah, absolutely. So a big thing we talk about students getting ready to come in the program and then just continue to focus on it throughout, is we're really trying to develop them in three key ways, right? Obviously, academically, professionally, and personally, right? We think all three of those are really critical for what employers are expecting from our students when they walk away from the program. Yes, they need to have that academic content. They need to know what to do. But our students are primarily 0 to 3 years of experience. So we're really accelerating their career. That's what these students come into the program for, is they feel confident I could get a job. We're pushing them to think about 3-5 years. Where do you want to be then? Right. So academically, content, yeah, you need to be ready for that next level job you're going for, but the professional is so important as well, right? We harp on these students. You are no longer undergrads. You're seen differently. There's different expectations from the faculty first and foremost, but your peers should have those different expectations, but certainly the employers are going to have a different expectation for who you are when you're coming in and joining their organization. And then personally, right? We really embrace that culture of care and diversity within the program. So we have a good breadth of students coming directly from international institutions that are bringing a new perspective into the classroom, into our community. We have a lot of students coming from the humanities and different academic backgrounds, along with our tech and business focused undergraduates. So really seeing them come together. We have a core in the first semester. So you're throwing everything that you need to know, building that foundation, right? So it's a really intensive first semester, 13 different modules, and yet you have a team of 4, right? And we're very intentional in building those teams of 4 with academic and personal diversity within those groups. So they really learn to lean on and push into each other to really help them grow as individuals. And then throughout the year, we add in those cultural events really to bring it out. Right? We're really excited. We have Diwali coming up here in a few weeks. So it's a really cool way for our Indian students. They get to rally together and really get a way to share their culture with their peers. And we'll have, 130, 140 students at that event, along with the faculty and staff. So it's a really fun way. And we just do that a number of different ways, Lunar New Year, Black History Month, and the whatnot throughout the year. We're giving those opportunities to really celebrate those aspects of our community.
Right, whether it's Diwali or any other festival that puts so much emphasis on color, count me in. Of course, as 5 sort of pioneer schools in this space, and with MBA programs that have been around for decades. And Alison, we've often talked about that MBA network, the alumni, the level of sort of support, but things are moving very quickly, and having launched the Biz Analytics Masters, do you find already that you've been able to establish a sort of that network of alums and how they are able to sort of contribute and support the incoming students?
Yeah, so we started this program 5 years ago, and I was part of that launch, which was super exciting. But that first year was a little bit, especially in the beginning, unknown as to which companies would we connect with. And with Goizueta being a fairly small business school at the time, we really relied on our MBA and BBA alums who felt so tied to the school and also saw such a need for the type of skills that our students had. And through the Goizueta connection back then, we were able to kind of develop our network. But now we have 5 classes of MSBA students, 4 that have graduated, that are just so tied to the program. I think with a cohort as small as ours, they really not only form a bond with each other, but they form a bond with the program office as well as the school itself. And we are in the process of launching a new master's, a Master's of Analytical Finance, and maybe leveraging some of our MSBA alums as well as MBA. So it's really a school that has kind of embraced these programs and really helped us build the network that we have today.
I'll make a note for the Centre Court Festival of 2026 to come back for that new program. Paul, you must get the question of someone saying, well, MBA, I can sort of keep things general, and then maybe electives that I take in the second year that could take that sort of focus or deeper dive. How do you like to sort of frame the choices? I mean, they're wonderful options, both of them, but as they face those different options, what you advise the benefits of specialization versus the more general MBA degree?
Well, we think about this question a lot, Matt, and I really appreciate your asking it. We're in the process of building our long-term strategic plan as a business school. And, as we've seen MSBA as successful as it is across the category, there's a lot of interest, of course, from our MBA students in the kind of courses we're taking and the courses we're building. And likewise from our students in a more traditional MBA course in leadership, for example. And so we spend a lot of time figuring out what one Anderson means. It's more than just an aspiration. It's for us, it's a necessity that we're one future together. And so when I've talked to the people running that strategic planning committee about what we do in our program relative to the MBA, I like to think about it in terms of a management-oriented engineer or technician, someone coming in with this quant skill with a management orientation. Likewise, on the MBA side, a subset of those students who are essentially technically oriented managers, right? So they're going to find each other in the middle. They're going to find each other in the workplace in a year. And so every place we can get them together, working in groups, especially around things like clubs. We've just had our students launch the first business analytics association for UCLA Anderson, run by MSBA, the first club ever built by MSBAs. And they probably told me they're now 300 people. And many, many of those, of course, are going to be MBA students. So we're always navigating that world together. We know that as we talk to clients outside, recruiters and partners, they're also explaining that their teams, whether they're being augmented because of this new demand for analytics or for building first teams, that really asking a question, what is an analyst, what is a data scientist, are still greenfield questions in a lot of places. So I think it's a very exciting future, and one that I think this class we're recruiting for today will be pioneers in as we all figure it out.
Yeah, well, one of my twin boys is just beginning his master's in biz analytics, so Dad has to kind of keep up with the pace and where that's headed. John, he's a great example of what you were describing earlier. It could be a liberal arts background, could be the professional in the early 30s looking to make that transition. So as we think about it from an admissions perspective, whether it's the work experience, the skill sets, and also bearing in mind how people can sort of they're not looking for someone like me. So how would you sort of set out that holistic approach that you take to admissions and the sort of applicants that you see thrive and flourish at Purdue?
That's a good question, because I think at first, if you're not from that kind of sweet spot of I'm an engineer or I'm a computer science person or I did data science or I come from the sciences in general, it can be intimidating. And so I think it's, obviously we're looking for test scores and GPA, but we want to see if you can write. Can you document? Can you formulate your opinions, and can you persuade? We've included a course on communication and persuasion for all of our business analytics majors. I mean, that's what you're going to be doing, right? And so the liberal arts major, the College of Arts and Sciences student that didn't think they would be, in the running, are very much in the running, because if you can, and Alex did a great job of explaining kind of that first semester, right? And it can be really overwhelming for folks who are not from a mathematical background, right? Or they maybe had 1 or 2 math courses to satisfy their undergraduate requirement. But it's the beauty of everybody pulling together and saying, we're going to do this together. And you can see the looks on their faces that first, second, third week, that kind of, oh my gosh, what have I done? and they'll come to us in admissions and recruiting and say, why did you let me do this? And then but then you can see the growth and the maturity. And so, we do a video essay. So when you're applying, so we can see you communicating and sharing. We ask you some, leading questions so that you can develop your thoughts. And it's a great way to say, hey, I'm more than just a data analyst. I can explain this and I can tell the story of what the data is telling us. And so I think all of us are probably looking, that's like the ideal candidate, right? Is someone who can grind those numbers and write the algorithms and use the, the AI to then tell the CEO or the CFO or the COO exactly what it is we're looking at, right? And what have we discovered? So, I mean, I think we all are looking for that type of person who's not afraid of the numbers, who's not afraid to get in there and try to get their hands dirty, for lack of a better term, of trying to solve these really difficult business problems with folks who are not necessarily from the same background as they are.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And with that academic rigor, but being able to sort of capture the attention of the C-suite, Maria, you'd also talked about issues of ethics that the access to certain data will then bring up. So at Mendoza, are you looking at an individual's a sense of their value system or other sort of soft skills beyond their ability to crunch the numbers?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that back to the ethical leadership, because it is really something that we set aside as one of our 3 defining values here, even at the broader Mendoza. And one of them, we do have courses within, so we'll have like embedded courses with ethics and big data analytics, but how we're reviewing that through the application, we have a number of ways in which we're assessing for students and what they value to shine through. So I'm just going to share a question that we have, because I think it's really close to what we do here, and anybody who opens an application could see this. It is the question asked about servant leadership and what does servant leadership look like to them. And we actually ask our candidates to tell us about a time when they did not display servant leadership. And so there's a little bit of a sense of humility and kind of vulnerability there in sharing that, but we're actively looking to see how somebody responds, how they've shifted, how they've changed, how they've grown. Because we think that, with that and the other components, like John mentioned, the interview and, getting to speak with some of our students and other, academic advisors and academic directors, we want to get a sense of that community-minded, that inclusiveness, and somebody who's willing to take a stand for something that's important to them. It's important to be grounded in that and to really feel like with that information, they could create change or create growth or just making a difference. So that is very critical through the admissions process.
We've touched on this idea, Alex, of candidates that make assumptions. Well, surely Kelley's looking for this kind of profile, and how do I fit? As you think about the approach and reaching beyond certain basic skills, how do you like to frame the sort of profiles, the sort of diversity that will thrive in the information systems program at Kelley?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I really appreciate my role, right? I get to work with our admissions team as they're out there, doing their thing, getting people interested and excited and knowledgeable of the program. But I also have work on the student service side, right? So I'm working with students as they're coming through the program and on their way to being really awesome alums. The really easy question for students is we have to see you have a passion for this, right? Obviously, we're going to make sure you got the academic goods, right? That's kind of the first look when an application comes in, right? Do you meet the basic essentials expectations of us, right? Those academic profile pieces. But then we bring you in for a group interview, right? And what my colleagues were talking about, that first group interview, we're not worried about your technology skills, right? I could care less. I want to see, do you have the ability to work in a team? Do you have the ability to get up and give a presentation? Because everyone's going to give one impromptu. You don't know what's going to come up that day, what's going to come out of the hat, right? We want to see how you respond under pressure, a little heat there, right? But how well can you present yourself, right? And overall, are you demonstrating, yes, this is what I want to do? Because everyone here and everyone sitting on this webinar today knows that this is a hot field, right? There's a lot of jobs, a lot of great opportunities, right? We're trying to make sure you're not chasing the money, right? You're not chasing a hot job. You actually have a passion for this. Because then once you show that and you show the academic grit to be successful, we have great confidence in the program, right? I love the faculty. They're going to put the time in. They're going to get you to the end. But you have to show that, right? So I always do a simple exercise day one of onboarding where I make students write down, what is that motivation? Right? What was that motivation to get in this program and do well? I have them write it down. I have them create a monthly calendar event in their phone, right? And then I make them invite the person sitting next to them to that monthly invite, right? Someone who's going to have to come alongside them and say, hey, remember you're here for a reason. This is why you're doing it, right? So helping develop that community, having someone know that they're rallying around you. That's a big thing. So it starts in the admissions process and goes through the whole program of like, have your motivation, lean on it. That's the light at the end of the tunnel. There's going to be some dark spots, academic. It's going to be tough, right? What do you focus on throughout? So that's a big thing we're looking for, is to make sure that's present with students as they go through.
You sort of remind me of the gift of applying to your programs, you know, the mirror that you hold up. And then, of course, on that first day, you know, what was the true passion, what was the true motivation, and reminding of that, having that monthly reminder in their calendar. So as that application, Alison, you know, applying to Goizueta or any of your programs, what is your advice in terms of just putting everything together and really making sure that, you know, you present your best self? You're about admissions, you're not about rejection. So how do we make sure, you know, that we put our best foot forward?
Well, I think Alex said it so well, when it is this passion for the field. You know, I think, I don't want to say anyone could do this, but you could put yourself through this. But if you don't love it or are passionate about it, it may not be the best 10 months of your life. And one of those things that I tell students that they really need to do is think about the coding aspect of the program. Of course, we're not a computer science program, but the programming and coding is a means to the end. And I do ask that students go through some sort of coding exercise before being fully admitted to the program, not just for us, but for them, because, you know, we've admitted students that maybe didn't come from a coding background, and then they got in the program and they didn't enjoy it. And their experience was much different than the student that loves the coding and spends all their time, you know, debugging. So that's one thing that I usually tell students before the application process is do a little bit of coding if you don't already have it. Maybe take a course in data camp in Python or R, some of the techniques that we use, and go through that process and make sure that you enjoy it. And that also helps you prepare for the kind of admissions process as a whole, because I think we all look at this very holistically. Of course, we have to look at test scores. Of course, we look at academic transcripts. But there's got to be something else there for those students that are coming from. We've admitted a theater major last year, and he did a great job, a music major. But, you know, they really had to go through a test of, was this something they were passionate about? So they took courses ahead of time. And then number two, they spoke to alums and current students to really understand what they were getting into. And when you look at an application from someone who has done that sort of discovery and who has done a little bit of homework by talking to people in the program, you can see that in the application that comes out in the essays, that comes out in the video essay. So really go beyond just kind of the website, really go talking to alums, current students, put yourself through some coding if you haven't really done so before the application. And I think that's a great place to start.
Right. Paul, as a kid, if anything like me, you know, Pythons were things that we'd find at San Diego Zoo rather than on somebody's resume. So you know, given Alison's approach, but you're also talking about, you know, through 300 individuals that almost overnight have put together a club and a part of this bigger community. Is that something that you like to get a sense of, that level of sort of engagement and commitment?
It's interesting. I mean, I think my peers would agree that there's a subset, probably the very top of the pyramid, who's going to shine from the moment that they express interest in you, and they just continue to, you know, show up. Either they're there in person or they're coming to events like this one, and when they do, they're coming prepared, right? So they, you know, you look for them. It's exciting to meet them. You know they're going to be a fit, right? So it's just a matter of getting there. And the reason I bring that up is because our current class president, Chloe, was the one to start that business analytics club. She saw as an opportunity. She aimed at women in analytics, and they said, well, why don't you start the bigger club? It hasn't been started yet. So she did just that. So yeah. In fact, as we think about our candidates overall, I would echo what Alex and Allison said about, the application starts with a technical table stakes, frankly. I mean, we have to be sure that you can do the work. But then on top of it, when an economics major comes our way and they say, can I really do this? They often follow it with, I have been taking Python on the side now. I mean, more than ever, we're hearing that from humanities majors or from others who just have followed the blogs maybe and understand what it means to get in. But it's that next level of stated commitment to the field, the passion that comes through and what they know about the industry. And like the rest, when we do we get to the point of our interviews, we're asking them to present for 5 minutes to us live. In that Zoom presentation, we're looking for passion, and we're not giving them very much instruction at all. So show up with your best and see where we go from there. And a lot of times we'll find that a person on paper might look like the rest, but when they show up on screen and give you their best, there's really no question. And so yes, those that shine always shine through.
Right. Right. And each of those voices, whether for Diwali or other festivals, John, presumably for an international audience who other business programs, maybe held back in the last couple of years, just uncertain about, even H-1B visas and other things that might impact, outcomes coming through the program. What would your message be to the international audience in terms of, now good time, great job market that you'll then be graduating into 2023, 2024?
I'd say yes. I mean, the sky is the limit, and we're off to a great start. I'm sure my colleagues are as well in the international space. Obviously, things were really challenging over the last 18 months. We actually have a summer start program for our BAME program, and we moved it the first time because of what was happening here in the States, and then this summer just finished, we had to push it back again because a lot of our international friends were unable to get here.
Right.
And so I think we're seeing, even though the demand for this type of program is just through the roof, I think we're seeing a little pent-up demand from the international marketplace right now, in that folks are very interested. We've got a lot of obviously leads, but also people who are starting applications earlier. And I think they're saying, okay, it looks like we're going to be able to travel and move freely. And I think the climate here in the States has improved in terms of, possible job opportunities for international students. And so I think we're seeing some of that early on here in what all of us in the industry call the cycle, right? But the cycle seems to be off to a great start. And if you're an international student and you're looking to study in the United States, it's a great time. And I have no hesitation, because things are great here at Purdue. We were kind of out front. We've been open. We never in the spring semester of 20, when nobody really knew what was going on, we went virtual, but our fall 20 classes were all in person, and have been ever since. And so, and that's a testament to really the faculty, staff, and mostly the 40,000 students that are here, to live by what we call the Protect Purdue guidelines, and make this a safe environment, a healthy environment to study in. So I think that right now, if you're an international student, it is a great time to come to the United States and study, and come to all of these great schools that have really phenomenal faculty who are doing incredible, groundbreaking work in this space, and to learn from it and leverage it for your career.
Yeah. So I mean, given the passion that all five of you have for your work, for your schools, you just radiate enthusiasm. I defy any of our viewers not to come away incredibly enthusiastic for each of the programs that you offer. So next steps, Maria, and even what you've experimented with perhaps through the pandemic of with campus visits weren't an option, but we have all these info sessions or sort of virtual coffee chats. What do you think is a good next step for someone that wants to find out more about your program?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to what Allison said earlier about contacting a student or an alumni. I think that's a great next step. I think getting to know the community and the culture is so important. If you think about the transition that you make for a 10-month or like Paul's program with 15 months, it could be about the environment, the location, the job opportunities in those locations after, the alumni network after the fact that are local and could really help support. So I think being in touch with those resources, they will tell you the ins and outs of the curriculum, what they like best, what they, where some of the glitches may have been, and those will be the source of truth. I also would recommend just researching different programs. There are so many different formats these days for business analytics. So, whether it's like the length of time or whether it is the hybrid format, fully in person, or if there's a residential, non-residential programs, and thinking about, where is it that you'll thrive ultimately? Like where will you have the best experience based on, your understanding and the research that you've done. If it's all possible, I would recommend a trip to the campus. I know that that's kind of like a big bet sometimes. But I think if you're somebody who's a feeler or has some, is checking all data points, and one data point is like the housing market, or it's where you'll live, or the food scene. I mean, I don't know, there's a lot of different ideas there, but definitely collecting as much data as you can. And I do think a trip to campus is important. I'm assuming people are nodding, so campuses are open for visitors, probably with some exceptions. So.
Right, and given that just the warmth on this panel, how welcoming I'm sure you are when people are able to make that campus visit. So Alex, just a final question for you as you work with your colleagues in admissions, your colleagues, in terms of the student program, you've got this big picture as the director of the program. You look at all of these lives that you're helping to transform and having such positive impact. It might be obvious, but what do you love about the work that you do?
So the easy word is transformation, right? We really get to see these students transform, right? So many of them, we open up our admissions process to students as early as a sophomore in undergrad, right? So we start working with them at that time and bringing them in for sessions and have opportunities to connect with alumni, right? So they're going through a lot of maybe struggles in undergrad, and we're really there to support them along with all of their peers and resources through the undergraduate programs, wherever they may be, but to see them continue to grow throughout that full year, right? It's just remarkable. And then you get to go off and see them at alums, and then they come back as campus ambassadors. It's just so much fun, right? It's remarkable. You can think back to the great things they've done, the changes they've implemented in the program, right? We make sure that students have a really good voice. We have a group of student representatives, right? We have 3 cohorts, and they come to us every week, and we talk about, what are some easy wins, what are some long-term wins, right? And so it's really cool to see, yeah, they're certainly invested if, can we incorporate this, or hey, can we get some more faculty feedback here? But to see those ambassadors, they're invested in the future, right? They often talk about the core, especially towards the end of like, obviously we're not going to get to see this, but these are things that need to be implemented next year. And I can point to dozens and dozens of examples that over my 4 or 5 years in the program now, we've seen changes, and those were student focused, right? They said this needs to happen. Obviously the faculty are connecting, and we have our alums at the different firms that are pouring in. But so we're transforming, and the individuals in the program is constantly forming. In this field, you cannot stay stagnant, right? You cannot be teaching what you were teaching 5 years ago. You're just not doing the service or justice to your students at that point. So really getting to see them transform. And I know some others have talked about, but for some students, that starts as early as May, right? We have a whole boot camp for students who come in. They're coming from an English or a non-business, non-tech background. We're going to bring them in, in the summer a little bit early to get them up to speed, so everyone's starting on that same foot come the fall and whatnot. But they just continue to grow. It's really remarkable.
Well, I think that sense of transformation, you've all made an irresistible case for this next step, personal development, the journey that you're all going to accompany them on. So Alison, Maria, Paul, John and Alex, thanks for joining us at the Centre Court Masters Festival. I know that the P&Q audience will love to find that it's the poets and the quants and that level of inclusion and support to really get people and help them to achieve their dreams. So thanks for being with us. It was great to have you on the panel.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, everybody.
Poets and quants.